There we go. Hello, everyone. We still have a couple people filling in here. Really excited to chat with Ken Shelton. Happy Monday. Absolutely, Ken. Happy Monday indeed. So we have people slowly filtering in. This is being recorded. So if you have to step away for some reason, this will be shared out, as well as a PDF of the spaces that we're going to share as well. So we're really excited to show you some resources, some way to make the prompting work for you, and more than anything, to hear from Ken Shelton about how we can actually make a space work for you and for your students. So, Ken, why don't you say hello and maybe introduce yourself? I could do it, but I would just embarrass you.
No, you
So, if you
wouldn't.
want to,
No, you wouldn't.
but,
No, you wouldn't. I'm glad to see everybody here. I did put in the chat. I'm wishing you all a happy Monday, early August, obviously. So I know some folks are likely shifting their mental disposition towards the start of the school year. Hi, Elaine. I recognize Elaine's name. So for those of you that I haven't had the opportunity to meet in person, my name's Ken Shelton. I am an educator based in Los Angeles. As Nick shared, he could introduce us. Nick and I have been close friends for at least 20 years, which I think is a testament to one, the edtech community, which we'll discuss a little bit more about that during this time frame. But then also, I'm just glad that you all are here, and I am certainly optimistic that some of the things that we will discuss will be helpful leading into the school year, and ideally there'll be evergreen things for you all to either support educators or if you directly work with students, use yourself this coming school year. So I guess I should credential myself a little bit. Like I said, I'm based in Los Angeles. I taught for almost 20 years. My last 11 years in the classroom, I taught in the technology lab, and I've been around ed tech this entire century. So Uh, I'll just say, because I know it's part of our discussion, it's amazing how conversations come full circle, considering that early in my specific, not just teaching, but technology teaching career, the arguments were against students using the internet and against students using Google and Wikipedia. So I do with that information what you will with the current narratives that are being propagated and amplified. And I'll share with you all, just like my mentor or my overall outlook and disposition was back then, is that it is oversimplifying and removing the nuance of what technology is and what it is capable of doing in the right hands and with the right approach.
well, Ken, I think you nailed it right there, especially that last part there, right? In the right hands with the right approach. Because one of the things here we talk about at school, AI, I'm starting to see across the country, is this idea of the impact AI has on learning, right? It is going to solve all of the problems or it's going to cause all the problems. And like you said, the nuance seems to be missing. So, from your experience, what you've seen, what you've written about, where do you see this learning impact in actuality?
So I think it's in multiple layers, and it's important for us to really keep these in mind. I usually bring what I'm about to say. I usually bring it up at the early part of a couple of my keynotes right now. Is to so number one, acknowledge the reality of our times. Technology is a part of our lives and our students' lives, significant part, whether we want it to be or not. So that's number one. So number two, the thing that I always bring up is if you are a believer in literacy, which I don't know a single educator that isn't, or at least they won't admit that they aren't, then that your approach to literacy, your definition of literacy, and your applications of literacy must include digital technology, period. You think about our access to information. You think about the ways in which we interact with different digital media. Those are all within what I would say a literacy ecosystem. And so the point with that is to acknowledge the what I would share with folks is acknowledge the objective facts. Not the hot takes and the opinions, but the objective facts. Tech is a part of our lives, is going to be a part of our lives. AI, for example, is not a fad. I remember when people thought the internet would be a fad. And so for me, it's really regrounding ourselves in what does thoughtful, practical, strategic, and intentional implementation of technology look like. It's recognizing that when an argument is about screen time, is that is an oversimplification, and it's also a bad faith argument because it implies that all screen time is equal. And one of my things that I'll share with you all that I bring up is, and I ask this in my keynotes, is does active consumption, or excuse me, does passive consumption equal active creation? And of course, we all know it does not. If I'm sitting there scrolling through YouTube video after YouTube video after YouTube video after YouTube video, I would argue that that is not necessarily a good use of screen time. Adjacent to that would be if you're having students fill out digitized worksheets. That is not a good use of screen time. However, using platforms that allow for creative projects or creative tasks that increase the fidelity of students' representation of their knowledge and their understanding, that also serve as a catalyst for students to discover whatever sort of creative gifts that they bring to the learning environment. Those are good uses of screen time. And so when it comes to things like having students, for example, vibe code a digital portfolio that represents their learning of a particular unit of study. And if that involves trial and error, which it usually does, and the iterative process, and it takes them several hours to do it, that is a good use of screen time because they're not passively consuming, they're actively creating. And so I think for all of us, it's really carrying talking points like those into our conversations and not allow the bad faith arguments to distill the use of technology to simply all screen time is bad screen time, so therefore we need to cap the screen time. And let me
But
add
what
one
about the
other thing. Let me add
oh
one
yeah,
other quick thing because I do have to be crystal clear on this as well. Oftentimes, the expectations on how tech is used are not commensurate with the resources and the PD that the teachers are provided as well. And I
yeah,
can speak to
that
that from personal experience.
yes, so can I. I think a lot of people here today definitely have felt that. But what about the critical thinking? Right? Isn't AI going to destroy all critical thinking for all users?
So that's another oversimplified argument. I would say that many of the concerns, first of all, the oversimplified arguments, and I'm going to post a write up. I have a draft of it. I'll post a write up of what are the conditions and the characteristics of building what I describe as a moral panic architecture. And bad faith and oversimplified arguments is one part of it. Logical fallacies is another. And then, of course, you sprinkle in, a pinch of gaslighting. But the point is that the concerns around cognitive offloading and allowing AI to do our thinking and our work for us, those are legitimate concerns, and those are things that educators need to be consciously aware of. And I always say you need to be consciously aware of it in the context of students using it, but you also want to be consciously aware of it in your own use as well. Okay. Now, when it comes to your point around critical thinking, I'll use an example of a thinking routine I bring up in my workshops on how we want to develop both a conscious and a situational awareness of where our use of artificial intelligence strengthens what we do, and then where's that line between it strengthening and replacing what we're capable of doing. And so what I always say is when you use AI, some of the key critical thinking questions are the following. What part of my thinking am I asking AI to do? What part of my thinking am I asking AI to strengthen? And then as I do it, at what point do I need to be consciously aware of again, the difference, the line? If I ask, and I'll use a very simple example, is when I see educators say, though, I have AI do my lesson planning. I always follow that up with, do you understand that the way the system is designed, it's designed to go to the median and then the default. It doesn't know you, it doesn't know your learners. What I would encourage you to do, again, my approach is still remains and always has been strengthen, not replace. So yes, use the AI potentially to strengthen a lesson plan you already have. If you want to incorporate technology in a more thoughtful way that supports agency and critical thinking, then I'll take that critical thinking. Then I will ask, what type of critical thinking, what's the context, and what's the cognitive process you want the students to do? So, for example, I may have a lesson plan where I want students to develop higher degrees of situational awareness around their critical thinking, specifically for the context of reflection. So I may attach a lesson plan to a large language model and say, I need this lesson plan to be redesigned, maintaining the learning journey in alignment with the pedagogical approach I have, which I still tell folks when it comes to technology, we still want to embrace TPAC, which for those folks that don't know it, is technology, pedagogy, and content knowledge. Okay. You have the technology and you have the content knowledge. You design the pedagogical approach, and then that becomes the lesson plan. But nevertheless, my point is if I want to incorporate again, critical thinking for reflection, I will probably say redesign this lesson plan, maintaining the pedagogical fidelity and the scope and sequence structure, identify areas where I can incorporate technology, or more specifically, a technology platform that supports the following critical thinking reflection I want students to do. And usually when I taught, I were two. I used to think, now I think was one. And then the other one was connect, extend, challenge. Connect what you learned to what you previously knew. How did it extend your thinking? And what challenges or obstacles did you overcome to reach that, to reach the goals that we had or the learning objectives for it? And so that's an example of, instead of saying, do my lesson plan for me, it's no, I'm centered. I'm strengthening a lesson plan I already have for the specific purpose in alignment with, in that case, is critical thinking, but specifically critical thinking for reflection.
Well, Ken, where did School AI fall into this exploration of AI for you? Because there are plenty of tools out there, and I know that as someone who's known you, like I said, 20 plus years, I know you're the type of person to try all of the things and come to your own conclusions and not,
Right.
buy into the fad or the hype or the marketing necessarily. So, why did School AI, or how did that stand out as you started to explore and look at all these different tools?
Right. I mean, for me, it's my favorite is the use of spaces. I think chatbots they have not gotten their due that they should, but I also understand why. And so the point of me answering your question with spaces is because I design my own spaces from scratch. I know that there are chatbots out there that people can use. I will share with everyone on this call and people who may watch this recording. I don't use pre-designed chatbots for several reasons. So number one, I don't know what the prompt that was written and the design of that chatbot, so I can't confidently predict how the chatbot is going to perform. The other reason why I like to use something like Spaces, and I share this with educators, is you want to strike a balance between efficiency and efficacy when you're using AI. And so if, for example, I wanted to be able to have a group discussion, and I want it to occur over, let's say, just like a 10-minute time frame. I may use a space to do that. And again, why am if I carry the disposition of strengthen, not replace, I'm going to write the prompt for that space that mirrors the type of conversation I want to have, the disposition and perspective or persona that I have, the ways in which it will communicate, the ways in which it will respond to inputs, the measures of success I want it to have, and in some cases, maybe even a call to action or a pre-assessment. You see, that's the whole idea around learning experience design. What is experience I want you to have? And then now, how do I explicitly write that in a prompt so that I know exactly how, in this case, how the space is going to perform? I'm going to have it ask you some initial questions as a pre-assessment. I'm going to tell it how I want you to respond. Here's a true story. I worked with one of the school districts I worked with. I did it with the students when it came to writing. And I said to the students, I'm sure that sometimes you all get a writing prompt and you sit there and that cursor sitting there flashing on your screen. I go, and I get it. You may think, well, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. Let me just let AI do it for me. And I go, but that's you allowing AI to strip you of your agency as well. And I go, so here's what we're going to do. And I said, I'm going to design a chatbot that will help you begin the cognitive process of exploring your ideas, turning your ideas to outline, and then now you can do your writing. So I said, so first and foremost, I'm going to give it a persona. And so in the space, I always encourage educators, don't limit your persona to one. So in the context of that one, it was, you are a high school English teacher with an expertise in AP English. You also have an expertise as a writing coach, and you are a thoughtful supporter of students as they develop their writing skills. Okay, you see, that was four personas already. And then I asked the students, do you want it to respond in any one of the following ways? You want it to respond like a drill sergeant, like an athletic coach, like a life coach. Which of those three? Because all three can support growth, but they're going to respond differently. And so, of course, the students are like, oh, like a life coach. Perfect. So I know this approach is going to be different. Do you want it to affirm ideas that you have, or do you want it to follow up the ideas that you have with questions? And my whole point, there was the prompt ended up being long, but you see, my point is I use the space, but I use the space because I specifically wanted to be designed to have the conversation that I myself would have with the entire group of students, which in this case it was 50, simultaneously. And I set up all the conditions for it. And then, of course, what's the one thing I included in the prompt that I showed the students? And I literally said, when you connect to the space, I want you to ask it to do this so you can get it out of the way. What did I include in the prompt? Do not write their essay for them. Redirect back to questions from an inquiry approach in alignment with your persona to support the development of their ideas. And I show that to the students, and I said, I don't want it to do your writing, and you see what I told it to do. So when you connect, let's get it out of the way right from the beginning. Ask it to write your essay for you. It's going to tell you no, and then it's going to help you explore your ideas. And again, the whole idea around that, it goes back to what you heard me mention: strengthen, not replace. It'll strengthen what I'm capable of doing. It's not going to replace me, and it'll strengthen what I wanted to support the students doing in idea generation and development of their ideas for the context of writing, not replace, i.e., do their writing for them.
Well, and as we were talking about this last week, Ken, you actually shared with me some spaces that you're like, oh, this is what I'm talking about, that you guys already have in place, because you also, while I have seen your prompts, and wow, I have seen your prompts, but that might not be a starting point for every teacher, especially new to the process. And so you gave
Correct.
me some really great starting points. So I'm going to share my screen, and this will all go out later in a PDF to everyone. So don't worry about, oh, what's the link? What's the link? You're going to get all of these resources. So do not worry. So let me share my screen here. And the first one that you shared, we're still waiting. There we go. This one was created, I think they were all created by Maureen, to be perfectly honest. They were. Maureen creates amazing spaces. This one was about real life budgeting with algebraic functions, was one that stood out to you.
Yes.
So for the people who maybe on the call have never gone into a space or personalized a space, what you can do is you can actually search for it on our main site under what's called Discover. And this was the one that you shared for English language arts. And you can actually
Yes.
search by content area, by subject specifically. But for this one, if you get to a space, you're like, ooh, I don't know if this meets my needs, right? Because if this was made by someone in Texas and someone in Massachusetts wants to use it, those standards might not align. The grade levels might not align. And so what you've said, Ken, that you love is the remix feature. So we click on remix. What'll happen is it'll open up and you are given access to the prompt. So this one here, we have context, role, and agenda that breaks down step by step. And then this last part here, there you go, guidelines. Use clear, supportive language to engage students, reinforce the real-world application of algebraic functions, encourage creativity in business ideas and solutions, and provide feedback on their business strategy and calculations. So this one in particular, right, walks them through every step along the way, and then gives
Correct.
it very clear guidelines as to what it is and the role, like you said. So you talked about, drill instructor, life coach, athletic coach, right? This one very specifically gives it the role that it wants to be for the students. And as you go through this, you can add more context. So you can add your specific
Correct.
standards. You can add
Correct.
files and resources. If you want to go advanced prompting. So if you're like, you know what? I'm ready to hit that Ken Shelton level of prompting. You can start to add specific outcomes that you want. You can start
There you
to
go.
add
Measures of success. Correct.
exactly, right. And then if you're feeling like overwhelmed and don't know where to start, you can generate it for yourself and then decide, because this is the thing. And you talked about this, Ken, And I think it really stands out for what we do. It's the agency, right? Like, how much are we giving up when we're asking AI and frankly, any product, right? Any tech, how much are we giving up when we're asking the tech to do it? And we firmly believe, hey, we'll open the door for you, but you as the educator are the expert. And so if you look at these outcomes and you're like, oh, I don't like this one, delete, gone, or go in and say, I'm going to add some information because ultimately the teacher is the expert in the classroom. You know your students. And so when you talk about this ability, you can go even further and go, these are the step by step directions I want. Here's specifically who my audience is. Maybe your audience is 30% special ed students with various needs. You can add that into here and take into account that information. How should it interact? So if you want to dive even deeper and provide more details on how you want it to interact with students, that's huge. And again, publishing details and all those type of things. This gives it, and then of course you can always test it out. And that's the big thing. If you're not
Correct.
testing out, and I did the thing years ago, Ken, where I challenged myself to complete the assignments I gave my kids over the course of a full year. And very quickly, I
Yep.
learned what was busy work and what was not because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
looked at an assignment and going, I don't got time for that. And I was like, oh man, how many of my kids are looking at that? And so with this, having that same idea, it's like, I need to be a student now and try to, we like to joke and say, break it. And Ken, you love breaking and trying to break chatbot models. You've broken many of them, I've seen over the years with simple prompting. And so, what this is designed to do is to give you the opportunity before you share it with kids. Try it out, try to be a student, get a sense of it. What does it do? Is it not sounding? And then all you're doing is tweaking. So, for us to be able to go to Maureen's space, find it, change the grade levels if I want to change the grade levels, and dive into that prompt gives you that sense of agency. So you're not stuck because a company has said, this is algebra, and your students are going to learn algebra with this chatbot, the end. And that's a terrible way to give technology to students because if your admin walked in and said, how does this relate to your curriculum? And if you don't have an answer, that's a really sticky situation to be in. So
If I may add one more
yeah,
thing here real
yes,
quick for
please.
everybody. So I'm going to drop in the chat and you can pull it up and remix it. That was one that I did for an English language arts high school department. And it connects to what you have here. First of all, hat tip to Maureen. If you all, she put together a lot of amazing spaces to at least start from. And so I think I shared this one with you, Nick, but I'm glad you pulled it up. If
Yes.
you go ahead and click on remix, and let me give folks that are here live and then obviously folks that are watching a little bit of background. So part of it is also how do we utilize artificial intelligence systems in ways that we either assess or identify learning that extends beyond what AI is capable of doing. You just saw an example that Maureen wrote with algebra, where it's taking algebraic functions and equations, but it's applying them into what I describe as an authentic or real world context, i.e., designing a business. With English language arts teachers, if you all notice here, I did a couple of things. Now, this is older. I would refine this prompt. So let me be clear on that, and I will share with you all how I would refine it. But my whole thing to the English language arts teachers was help me understand something, and I'm going to challenge you. What is the value of me reading long form text and then my only assessment, keyword only, being that I write a 5 paragraph summary? So I read a long form text and then you just want me to do a 5 paragraph summary. Help me understand. We had a discussion about that because my fear, which again for me was my fear is that many educators are doing it because that's the way we've always done it, and didn't pause and say, well, wait a minute, just because we've done it that way, why? So what I shared was I said, here's how I would look at things like assessment in the context of a English class, specifically writing. I go, by asking students to do a 5 paragraph summary of a novel, like in this case, Invisible Man, AI can do that. It can literally do that. And I go, and yes, you could say, well, I know my students' writing. And I just said, what are all the counters you have? And one of them was like, I know my students' writing. And I said, well, do you understand that if I can attach as little, because I've done this, as little as a 500 word writing sample of my own writing, and I can tell it, do a 5 paragraph summary on this, but I want you to match the syntax style and the stylistic lore of what I've attached. Now it's going to sound like me, even though it's done my writing for me. I said the key here is to do a real world, authentic, culturally responsive context with respect to your assessment. In this case, as you all notice, so what I would change with this prompt is I wouldn't necessarily give it the book summary. I would confirm that it already has that within the data sets, and it does. But if you all notice, the whole idea around this one is I'm not asking you to summarize what you've read. What I'm asking you to do is apply your lived experience and synthesize your understanding of the experiences of the protagonist in a novel to yours. So the central themes of Invisible Man are around identity, social environments, invisibility, belonging. All of those things are the central themes. In this case, I don't want you to summarize what Ralph Ellison wrote. What I want you to do is take your understanding of the protagonist, and then now I'm going to map that to your own lived experiences. See if you'll notice, have you ever felt invisible in certain social situations or group? How did that experience compare to the narrator's feelings of visibility in the novel? AI can't replicate that.
Well, and
And
I
this is
think I was going to say that's the whole point. It's the personalized aspect. As a former ELA teacher as well, that's exactly what you did in your class to make sure kids do it. Because what you're talking about, that whole give me a five, paragraph summary, that's compliance, right? It's do the thing, and now I'm going to check to make sure you do the thing instead of critically think. And when you ask them to connect it to their life, that is the critical thinking element, right? Like you said, it's always, oh, give me a summary. The summary was to check to see if you did it. It's about compliance. But when you take
yeah.
one little thing, it's not a massive change. It's a connect to yourself. That's it. That changes it drastically with like 3 words, connect to yourself. That's it. And so to utilize the space this way to guide those kids who maybe need those extra supports. And that's what I've always loved about this, because this is one of the very first things, and I think it's even before I worked at SchoolAI, you showed me this, and you
Yeah.
showed me this prompt. And I just love the way it helped those students who need the extra prompting that as a teacher, you necessarily can't provide, or the student might be too embarrassed to raise their hand to get support with.
I'm going to add another social and psychological layer to this. Sometimes, in the context of using a space like this, you may empower students to share more of what they think, how they feel, and what they've learned for what's the best way I can describe it? They may be reticent to do it publicly in front of their peers. This gives them the space to be able to freely do that. Because ultimately, once they connect to this, unless a teacher puts it up on the big screen where everybody can see it, the only person who's going to see it is the student and the teacher, and that's it. And then, of course, you could get into, like you just shared, you can get into things like, and again, I would rewrite elements of this because it is older, but I would rewrite elements into things like one measure of success would be that the students indicated specifics from the novel and gave details about how those specific instances in the novel map to their own lived experience. They're just not referencing it. They're citing specifics from the novel and giving detailed descriptions of their own experience. So, in other words, it would be something like, well, in the novel, he talked about going to a social space, and I've been in a social space where I felt invisible. That wouldn't be the measure of success. It would be what specific social space was in the novel, and how did that resonate with you? Give me a specific example. Was it a team? Was it a social function at school? Was it out in a public space? Like, you have to give specifics because, again, that's part of, in this case, it's part of the synthesis, the analysis, and then the descriptive writing. So, anyway, the main point to share this with everybody who's here is it's not when people ask me, well, why would I use a space? I always respond with, what's the learning experience that you want to design for? How does the space strengthen, not replace what you could do? And then we need to get into how do you design that experience in the space to maintain the integrity and the fidelity of learning, and the space strengthens something that you can do yourself, but you may not have a 3 hour class period to be able to have that kind of a discussion. Something like that.
Yeah, and I think as we how quickly time flies, it's 4:30
Oh,
already.
cow. That's a 30
I
minute window already.
I know, but that's what's so great is that it gives us that time to dive in and to really share some really awesome things. And I think when we look at the spaces that we talked about here, and I will add Ken's Invisible Man space to the PDF that we put out to everyone, so that you'll get that as
Perfect.
well. And again, it's a great example of an early space that still manages, not manages, but still fits the mold of what we've done with the updates, with the outcomes and things like that. And, you know, the dashboard that you'll get to see as you start to build this. And so, my recommendation for everyone that's here and that's watching it a little bit later is to don't feel overwhelmed about creating the perfect space. There's no such thing. The spaces will evolve as you evolve as a teacher, as your students evolve in your classroom. And I think even Ken, by saying, "Oh, this is what I want to show you," he immediately was like, "Oh, I would change this. Oh, I would change that." It's no different than any lesson that you've created where you go, "Oh, I would do this now," or "Oh, I would do that now." And for any of us that have tried to chase the white whale of the perfect lesson knows it's impossible. Like there's
Right.
no perfect lesson for all the kids all the time, and spaces will evolve just like you evolve as a teacher. So,
Right.
Ken, any last words of suggestion or encouragement to someone that's maybe brand new to using spaces in their classroom with students or with even other teachers?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. One is definitely test it out. The more that you can incorporate real world authentic experiences into the design of the space, I would argue the more effective the space can be, and the more justification and validation it provides for the use of a space. Maybe even playing around and doing something as simple as setting up a space to use very early in a school year to get to know your learners, like maybe even have it say, what's one thing you would want your teacher to know about you early in a school year that can support your growth and the goals that you've set for yourself for the school year. Just the best thing here, to borrow from the design, my design expertise, is the best thing to do is prototype and iterate. That's it. Prototype and iterate. And as Nick just shared, there's things that I would change on that Ralph Ellison space even right now, based on the design of the redesign of spaces, but also my knowledge of the novel, which I read it multiple times in my youth. But I would do that. I would prototype and iterate, and you will start to develop the contextually applicable language that you would put in the space that is unique to you, your grade level, your content area, and your learners. And some of those
Yeah,
things that are unique to that, those are now replicable across other spaces that you do.
absolutely. And my suggestion, just to double up on what Ken said there, quick ones like a bell ringer or an exit ticket. Like that was always my go-to in the classroom to try something out. All we're going to say is, "Hey, do you want to check in with every single student at the start of class? Start with the bell ringer. Hey, how is
Yeah.
everyone doing today? Where are you at?" Exit
Yep.
tickets are also wonderful. You just talked about mitosis all class period. Do a quick 5 minute exit ticket to see what kids know, and then utilize that to support their learning for the next class, right? It's just a way for you to gauge information and then do something with it as the expert. Oh, Ken's got, yeah,
10
Ken?
seconds. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done this. I encourage it with the bell ringer. So let's go back to like the algebraic functions. I would do the bell ringer checking in, and then you again use AI to help you with the idea. I would include the bell ringer, some type of a question that serves as a hook for the lesson for the day or the unit of study early in that process. So, for example, with
Yeah.
that, my bell ringer would be, for example, because I taught eighth grade algebra, would be, I teach eighth grade algebra students. Many of them don't believe that they're capable of performing well in math. So I want you to ask them a question about how they use math in their life to serve as a hook for the upcoming unit on algebraic functions and equations.
Yep.
That's your
And what's
warm up, by the way.
yeah, yeah. As a can you imagine doing that warm up in a traditional sense and getting all of that data and trying to manage it like we
Right.
talk about using AI to streamline or quicken these tasks that used to take us, a very long time or very complicated. Like those type of things to streamline a bell ring or an exit ticket can save you a full prep period like of
Yeah.
processing, understanding, looking at the kid's handwriting, go, I think Billy wrote this, or maybe Sally wrote, I don't know. Like to streamline that by using a space like this is game changing for teachers when we talk about the value of time and what we're able to accomplish. And so
Exactly.
all of you that we took the time today to participate, we thank you so very much. If you are getting started, please go to app.schoolai.com/discover, and that's where you can find all of these spaces that already exist. You can jump into bell ringers or exit tickets. You can search for Maureen at SchoolAI at SchoolAI. You'll see she literally has 1,700 spaces. I think we saw like she has generated a lot of spaces that are amazing.
Yep.
That you can see if it'll pop up there under creators. Let's see if it'll. There we go. Oh,
725.
yeah, that was no, they were public spaces,
Oh,
1,700. Yeah, that's a lot of spaces for everyone. So if you're looking, you can find so many of them. She's built so many amazing, amazing spaces as a writing coach, debate warm up, sources. They go on and on and on. You can definitely check out, and you can even find some of Ken's that are publicly shared as well. So I
yep.
want to thank all of you guys for taking the time to join us today. Ken, thank you so much. This will be the first of a long line of webinars we're going to do and work together as we get ready for back to school, especially in September, and just talking about the positive way in which we can make students grow and learn together by utilizing just another tool to help them get there while still maintaining their agency. So, and thank you so much, everyone. Stay tuned. You'll get an email, you'll get a PDF, you'll get a link to this, all cleaned up and ready to go. But we hope everyone enjoys either the last few days of summer if you haven't started school yet, or the very beginning of your school year if you're back in the classroom. So, thank you all. I'm Nick Provenzano from SchoolAI. Everyone have a very wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you for joining us.